company going bankrupt, or someone making an invention, or lots of these small news bits, which I try to deal with not as separate information, but I try to get a larger picture. Maybe developments in several countries. What are people doing in Asia, in Africa, in Europe? And then you can see either they're all doing the same thing, we say, we have a trend there, or they're all doing quite diverse things, which you can also use for a story and say, look, in Asia they're making everything green, and we're making everything red. Isn't that interesting? How come? Why is that? What's the social implication of it? So try to connect the dots of all these small news bits. It works out fine. Often, speaking about other places, Asia, Africa, often I have found that these, what David mentioned in the talk around before earlier, these social implications an innovation might have, or often has, much easier to spot in a country far away than in your own country. Because in your own country, you're part of the society. These changes often go slowly, and you don't notice. It's like you don't, like your relatives you don't really notice how they get older every day because the changes are small. But if it's someone you only see once in a year, you notice the change. And the same is with societies. If it's far away, I have found at least that it's often much easier to see how a new technology, a new product, a new policy can change a society, can change people's lives for the worse or for the better. And from that, you might be able to draw conclusions back to your own country. See, this is what happens there. I should maybe look if that same thing is happening here, or why is it not happening? Why is everything different here? So look at these exotic places, which also can be itself quite nice articles. I have written very well received articles about Bangladesh or Namibia, or places far away people don't hear about often. And it's interesting, I think. The research is interesting to actually look up the country, see what demographics they have. Are they rich? Are they poor? What are they living off? Where are they? Things like that. I find that interesting. Yeah, that's what I like about my job. I get paid for researching quite interesting stuff. And then I have to write an article so that I can tell a few people, and actually it's documented that I did the research. But what I like is that research, to find out these things. I get paid to work with information I find interesting anyway. I would like to come to the second part, which is just a few things I might help people who are on the other side, as I call it, who have to deal with journalists, who are not journalists themselves, but work in a PR department or for some other reason, get in contact with journalists. Just a few easy things. Journalists have no time, especially if they're writing for online publication or a daily newspaper. They have very short deadlines. They're always in a hurry, and if you get a call from a journalist, an email, who asks you something, and you cannot give him a straight answer at the spot, ask him about his deadline so that you know what time frame you're dealing with. And when you have to get back to them, when you say, okay, so I'll call you, I can't answer that right now, I have to ask my colleague or something, tell them when you will get back to them, and be honest. Be honest about it. If you cannot call him back today, tell him. Maybe give him a reason or not, but just say, I can only call you tomorrow or next week. Because even if the deadline of the journalist is today, as often is the case with online or daily newspaper journalists, it helps him more to know he will not get an answer from you today. If he knows that helps him more than you tell him, I'll get back to you, and then actually you just call him next week. Because then he will be angry next week because he can't even remember why he called you in the first place. So be honest about these these timeline these timeline things. The second thing is journalists like fights. We like quarrels, discourses. When one company sues the other, that's a headline. If one company likes the other, that's not a headline. Yeah, okay, nice for you guys, but it's not a story. But if they start to say bad things about each other, if they start to sue each other, or have a price war, or some sort of discourse, some sort of quarrel or fight, that gives us a headline. And if a journalist calls you in such a situation, and he has a totally different opinion than yours, totally, from your point of view, a totally wrong picture about the situation, talk to them. It's a chance, because a journalist who has a really very different picture and would never change his mind, he's not very likely to call you. A journalist that takes the time and effort to ask you about your opinion is a journalist you might be able to sort of turn around or give him a broader picture of a broader picture. Tell that journalist your story, and don't treat them as someone, oh, he's from the other side, he has that point of view, he's from the other side, I'm not going to talk to him. I have made that I have had situations like that, like some company calls me or some organization gets in contact with me, tell me their story, and they say, isn't that a scandal, isn't that bad? And then I go to the other side and say, okay, I've heard the following, what allegedly has happened, what do you say to that? And some companies or organizations react in a positive way. Well, they can say, yeah, it's true. But if they don't think it's true, if they have the opposing view, they can talk to me. They can tell me about what they think. But sometimes it happens that they think I'm from the other side, and they say, it's all bullshit what you're saying, we're not going to talk to you. What's the result of this? What's the result? It's quite easy. I write an article where there's just one point of view there, and it says the other side would not comment. I don't think that's in the interest of you, that in that article is only the opponent's point of view. So that's why you should try to talk to them. It's a chance. It's not necessarily, you're not necessarily going to succeed, of course. But I remember I researched a lot. I researched myself. I put a lot of info. I went to a different city in Austria and made this interview and blah blah. And then I went to the other side and asked them. And that PR lady, together with a colleague from the technical department, they actually convinced me with their story, and the effect was that I did not write a story at all, because there was no story. So for her company, it was a big success that I did not write the story, because it would have got a wide audience. But maybe in her record, in her file she gives to her boss, it will not turn up because it's not a clipping. It's a little unfair, but that's how it is. There was no article. She can't go and say, I managed to bring 500 articles to the press. It's only 499, but the one that was not published was a big success, maybe bigger than the 499 others. And the last thing is, you might have journalists asking stupid questions. Can happen. But they might just lack some information you can give them. That's why they're asking a stupid question. It does not mean they're stupid themselves. It might be just that they have to cover, journalists in general, most publications, with a few exceptions, but most publications have to cover several topics. They can't just focus on one thing. So they have to cover a broader range of things, and they can't be specialists in everything. So if they have that stupid question, try to help them understand what you know and what you can tell them. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. I would like to give you a chance to ask questions about the daily life of an innovation reporter.
How much time does research consume?